Welcome to The Line. Later this hour, we'll discuss issues of racial profiling in New Mexico in light of that controversial arrest of two black men at a Philadelphia Starbucks. And we'll examine the immigrant-friendly measures passed by Albuquerque City Council. But first, a plea deal. Ryan Flynn, Governor Martinez's former Environment Department Secretary, who now leads the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association, was arrested last May on suspicion of aggravated DWI because he refused a breathalyzer test and failure to maintain a traffic lane. Now, in August, Mr. Flynn pleaded no contest to a single count of careless driving in exchange for dismissal of that DWI charge. Journalists Justin Horwath and Jeff Proctor wrote a joint article in February showing contradictory statements from the DA's office about his involvement in that case. In a new joint article from those journalists published last week in the Santa Fe Reporter and the New Mexico in Depth, uncovers evidence that the DA who recused himself from the case was actually more involved than he originally said, and that dropping the charge to a lesser plea may have been a favor for a high-profile defendant. Our line panelists this week are former State Senator Diane Snyder is with us. Vicki Harrison from Common Cause New Mexico is with us as well. Serge Martinez, he's a professor at the UNM School of Law. And former State Senator Mark Boitano is with us. Serge, this new article has links to emails, hearing notices, other legal findings. It's very, when I say in-depth, I mean they really got under the skin of this thing. The conclusion that, prosecutors may have misled the public a little bit as an attorney yourself and teaching law, your first general impression of how this hit you when you read about this in the first place?
Well, when I read this, I see it possibly from a slightly different lens, which is that, I don't know this case. Don't practice in this area, but prosecutors have wide discretion in the cases they dismiss, how they prosecute them, how they plead them or don't plead them, and what they charge. Based on what I can tell, right, the defense attorney in this case is a highly regarded person who you may not want to go up against at trial. The facts are not particularly great for the prosecution in this case necessarily, as I understand it. But the idea that someone who has a good case and a great attorney and things happen quickly, that's actually how the system is supposed to work. Right. Instead of looking at this from my standpoint, assuming all this is correct, right? But that this person got special treatment, he should be treated badly like everybody else. I think we should flip that and say, why isn't everybody getting this sort of treatment in the system, right? Saying, okay, if you have a case that we don't think we're going to win, instead of this going on forever and ever, let's wrap this up quickly. Let's have folks who can make these decisions get involved at a relatively early stage. I mean, the result to me doesn't seem outrageous or all that unbelievable. The speed with which the process took place and the involvement of the higher-ups, that is exceptional.
Yeah, it was about 3 months, where usually these cases take 6 months or a lot longer.
Ages and ages, right? And there's a back and forth of I'll offer this, you offer that, but I got these facts, but let's watch the videos.
That's right.
And instead, this happened quickly.
Interesting. Senator, let me ask you this. Ryan Flynn's attorney stated months ago that nobody in the DA's office knew, Raul Torres specifically, that Mr. Flynn's high-profile status. You know what I mean? And now it turns out they actually very much knew about his status. Again, how did that hit you when they're putting out to the public things like that? We don't know. We gave him no special treatment because we didn't think he was, but now we find out otherwise. Right.
That he was special. Two things about this. One is I agree very, very much with Serge in what he said. Is the law? We still in our country the defendant is innocent until proven guilty, and there seems an awful lot of discrepancies in what was known and not known.
That's right.
The second point, I think, is the fact that had he not been connected to Governor Martinez, I think this case would never have made the news. Never, no one would ever have inquired about it. Do I think that, as a human being, yes, you have if you know that someone like the governor or the Oil and Gas Association is involved in or with this person, then you can't help, as a human being, you can't eliminate that from your consideration.
That's right.
But do I think they went out of their way to give him a good deal because of that? No, I don't think they had a case.
Okay.
And I think that, as Serge said, how they expedited it and did it, that's the way cases should be, not 6 or 8 months. And the thing about it is, Mr. Flynn still contends that he had
That's right.
not been drinking.
That's right.
And I didn't see any proof that he had been.
Right.
So if you don't have the proof, then how can you convict someone?
The breathalyzer, some 7 hours later, was minimal with,
Minimal,
with
right.
alcohol. Interesting. Vic, interesting. Again, I'm reading here. So much to this, but there was supposed to be a recusal from the Metro. One of the Flynn's defense team was supposed to recuse, and we find out, Mr. Greenlee, I'm talking about specifically, we find out now that there was a lot of communication going on between this alleged recusal. How did that hit you? I mean, this was fairly intimate, this conversation.
Well, it sounded to me like they were lying when they said that they were not involved. I mean, when you read these emails, and I agree with Serge, I mean, our criminal justice system is a total train wreck in this country. We don't have civil legal defense. We don't have, so if you can afford, I mean, we always make the joke, there's no rich people on death row.
That's right.
Okay? And so that is unfair. That is not how the justice system should work. At the same time, when I'm reading these stories, these really in-depth, great investigative stories, it looks like people are not telling the truth.
Right.
You know, it looks like I recuse myself, but I'm still emailing and
That's right.
asking questions and
Telling them when to plead, telling
here,
them when
watch
to,
this.
do you know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
thanks
like-
a bunch.
Right.
Love you, kisses. I mean, it was
Right.
ridiculous,
Right.
and that's what the public is looking at.
Right.
That's why the public is saying this is a friend, this is a favor, and even if it was the right plea deal, even if there wasn't enough evidence, then now that people have seen people not being truthful,
Right.
nobody's going to ever believe that, no matter how much that is true. The one bit of suspicion, and people are like, New Mexico, there we go
That's right.
again.
That's
Meanwhile,
right.
my brother is dealing with X, Y, and Z,
That's
and he
right.
didn't do anything wrong.
That's right, except just to have enough money to
It's really
boost
frustrating.
the system. That's right, that's right. Senator, interestingly, I'm curious what you think about what I mentioned, Raul Torres, the district attorney, and what about the reputation of the office with this situation? Because again, as Vicki pointed out and others, there was some communication that may not have been illegal, certainly, but it just seemed just not quite right. What about that for the office? Any hit here?
Well, I think, really the bigger question is why do we have a 50% dismissal rate on first-time DWI offenses? That's the big question. And, this incident raised the question, if you're well-connected, do you have access and do you have outcomes that are different than people that aren't well-connected?
Right.
And the answer for Ryan Flynn and others is absolutely yes. I mean, you have an attorney that has more experience, they have more connections, all of that. But let's look for a minute at the intent behind the DWI law. So,
Okay.
We're actually much better today than we were in the 90s.
Absolutely.
And,
No question.
under 3 governors, Johnson, Richardson, and Susana Martinez, we've created an array of strong DWI laws. And the intention on our first offense is to give discretion, because the reality is, for a lot of first-time offenders, it's a come-to-Jesus moment.
Gotcha.
And what
Yeah.
we're really interested in is repeat offenders.
Right.
So, we look at the reasons why. So, number one, you've got police officers who, don't like to spend a lot of time in court. We're low on police officers. They sit and they sit and they sit. So sometimes they make a decision, I'm not going to go to court.
That's right.
We've got the question of resources to the DA's office. And of course, that.
But he has a pile of new money. He
But
has
then
new-
jury selection, too, is very interesting.
Okay.
I was on a jury pool for aggravated DWI. The questions the prosecution asks are, do you think people are responsible when they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol? Right. Have you ever been convicted, or have you ever been charged of DWI? And they like to have this jury pool, the defense, with these kinds of folks. So anyway, there's a lot of variables, but I think the bottom line is there is discretion, and in my view, in this particular case, the discretion was applied reasonably.
Serge, the idea that he was observed weaving, driving. Mr. Flynn, we're talking about here in Blasme. He didn't have his headlights on. Right. It was after dark. You know what I mean? There was video of the the interaction between the police arresting officer and him. And again, I hear the senator's point that everyone should be given their day and have a chance to do this, but you know, what can the average person expect when they read stuff like this? Are they going to get a fair shake out of the DA's office too? I mean, you see what I mean? It really hits a bottom line here.
I mean,
at some
I agree.
point.
I think it says, look, why isn't everybody getting this sort of treatment? And that's the question that I would like us to ask, right? Which is, you know, why, if we can do it for some people, why can't we do it for everybody, right? And, you know, the reports from the police, a lot of that was other motorists had called in and said, I don't know, right? I watched the field sobriety tests.
That's
I'm
right.
not an expert, you know, it didn't look that terrible to me, but I'm not trained even a little bit.
And
but-
he refused a breathalyzer. We should put that out there too.
Right.
And, on the spot. So that's part of that whole weirdness we have here about.
As a defense
yeah.
attorney, that's exactly what you want, right? This is a good case, right? We don't have any evidence one way or another. So you can see from a legal procedure kind of standpoint. Why we ended up where we did.
Yeah, I could
where
see
we
it.
did, right?
I
The
could
question
see it.
is, again, can everybody else have this same approach? I
Just
hope so.
a final quick note. Joey Peters, a fellow that used to work here in New Mexico, we won't have time to talk about this, but wrote an interesting article in the Columbia Journalism Review comparing the coverage of this story between the Albuquerque Journal and the New Mexico In-Depth people and what the Journal had actually left off. You know, factually.
It was
here
a fascinating article, and
really
I
was,
really
yeah.
hope your readers, your watchers, will go be readers on
That's
that
right.
one
That's
because
right.
it was the juxtaposition was amazing.
It really was. So we'll link it. It's at cajr.org, but we'll have it on our website. Now, we'll have to hold that there. When we come back to the line, we'll look at how a racially charged incident at a Starbucks in Philadelphia has people talking here in New Mexico.